Call me a gum fruit the way I'm sipping on some loot. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Gamescapes. Today, and only today, we are here with a fun little Sonic speculation video. I figured now that we're very close to the Game Awards and the year is almost wrapping up, that we would do a little bit of predicting because it might be time. We might be closer to seeing that next mainline Sonic game than you ever realize. So make sure to follow your boy here, subscribe to your boy to support the content. We are on the road to 100K, and let's get ready for a crazy 2026. All right, so let's get right into the Sonic at the Game Awards, right? In general, I think it's first important to note that Sonic has a big history with the Game Awards the last few years, and not just the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley, right? It's funny because like people make this like ongoing joke that like Jeff Keighley hates Sonic, which like for me is like further from the truth. One, I've seen the guy at like Sega's headquarters in Japan, like straight up when I went last year for Sonic Rumble, he was just there, you know, and I know that man was talking, making the rounds, whatever they were gonna get for potential shows, whether, you know, it's Game Awards or Summer Games Fest or whatever, but I know that man himself is in the lab working with Sega, right? That's number one. And most important to realize. Number two, Sega this year at the Game Awards, I think is nominated for about 8 awards total, right? They're one of the most nominated for publishers. And in fact, Sonic is there at the Game Awards this year with 3 nominations, right? They're nominated for Best Family Game with Sonic Racing Crossroads. They're nominated for Best Sports Racing Game with Sonic Racing Crossroads. And they are nominated for Best Mobile Game with Sonic Rumble. So this is probably, I'm pretty sure in like the last like few years, this is the most nominations Sonic has gotten. And again, Jeff Keighley and Sonic have some kind of deal or thing. Let me run you back since 2021, I want to say. You know, I think like the whole deal with them started in 2021, right? So I remember, big deal, we got the reveal of the Sonic Movie 2 official trailer at the Game Awards, followed by the teaser for and title reveal of Sonic Frontiers at the Game Awards. Now, granted, Sonic Frontiers technically was revealed in a teaser of a Sonic Central that same year, but the title Sonic Frontiers was revealed, and we got like the first in-engine look with that CG trailer, you know, where he's almost like about to fall off the cliff. So that was really when like the marketing started, though, for the next 3D Sonic game. And I think like, I don't think we are gonna get the next mainline Sonic game revealed out of Sonic Central. I feel like we are at the point with Sega and Sonic where they want these reveals to be at these big events. But that's one thing, right? So we got that teaser. Then, right, at Summer Games Fest 2022, we got Sonic Frontiers there as well, right? And you know, and he had the game playable there. That was before I used to go to Summer Games Fest. And I remember, you remember when we were like trying to zoom in to footage that all these people were trying to get, and we were like trying to like look at all the interviews and what the gameplay is like. But yeah, it was at Summer Games Fest for the trailer. Then, right, at Gamescom that same year in 2022, which again is the opening night live thing hosted by Jeff Keighley, there was another Sonic Frontiers trailer. That was like just a general, like, I think it was called the Gamescom trailer, but that was like just, you know, a mix of CG and gameplay, like ideal trailer that you would want, right? And then you think about the next year, right? Sonic Superstars was revealed at Summer Game Fest, which is Jeff Keighley's show, right? They also had the reveal of, what's it called? The Sonic Final Horizon DLC at Gamescom Opening Night Live, hosted by Jeff Keighley, as well as a trailer of Sonic Superstars multiplayer, right? And then go back to up to the Game Awards once again, right? We had the reveal of Sonic Racing Crossroads at the Game Awards last year. So you see where I'm getting at, right? There is just a lot going on consistently with Sonic the Hedgehog at the Game Awards / Jeff Keighley events. Now, I think we are high likely here to see this next mainline game project at the Game Awards. Let's remember why. One, like I said, all the points I just mentioned, but remember, Game Awards right now is one of the most watched gaming events in the industry. It has effectively become the E3 of the industry, and what bigger place to go now than, you know, the prime event of the world. This is where you have the most eyes on you. Now, we're gonna get into speculation of what the game or thing might be, right? But I really do feel in my heart of hearts it's time, right? Because honestly, you think about this year, like I was looking back, you know, because we're gonna do that video. This is kind of a quiet year besides Sonic Racing Crossroads. So there hasn't really been, like, usually we have like a secondary Sonic game announced in the mix while we're waiting. But again, remember, the secondary games this year were literally like Rumble and Blitz. I guess like that other mobile game that we haven't even gotten like an official in the West reveal for. So I do think already just on like a momentum base, like, you know, for the Sonic series, I think it's time for a new reveal, right? Like I don't think I'm stretching when I say like, and again, people forget this, right? Like if you have not, like if you just bought Sonic Frontiers at launch, right? You know, and you didn't play the DLC because you're just someone that played the game and you dipped, and maybe, you know, you saw Sonic X Shadow Gens, you're like, well, I already own Sonic Generations. You technically, like, there's a group of people that have not had a mainline Sonic game in 3 years, right? And next year will be 4. Even if it doesn't come out potentially next year, I think it's time to talk about what might be next, right? Now, granted, I do want to talk about what possibilities we have, because I don't necessarily think we might for sure just get the next mainline Sonic game. I think there might be a chance of something else, but let's stick to first and foremost the next mainline Sonic. Let's say, boom, I think just like we did for Crossroads, just like we did for Frontiers back in the day in Game Awards, right? I think this is going to be a CG trailer. Sega loves, right, revealing their Sonic games with CG trailers, right? They did it with Frontiers, right? They did it with Crossroads. They have a history and people kind of expect them to do that. And I expect kind of the same thing here. I do hope that whatever CG trailer they do here is longer than like 10 seconds. I hope this is like at least a substantial one that might give you an insight on where we might be at, right? Like maybe a new look. CG reveal is like almost a lock for this. Now, for what the game might be, a lot of people are just straight up calling it Sonic Frontiers 2. There's a chance that the Frontiers name is so big now, you know, and I'm not saying that's the biggest thing, but I feel like Sonic Frontiers is like just a known established name that if you went ahead and called it Sonic Frontiers 2, like you could get away with that, right? And make it cool. I think Sonic Team just is avoiding that maybe because I think obviously they've seen what it's done with games like Adventure 1 and 2, where maybe people are just gonna be like, oh, where's the third one, right? You know, you immediately start a precedent when you start naming things with numbers where you're like, oh, is this going to be a direct sequel to this or whatever? So I think knowing them, they're probably going to name it something else. Now, granted, what the name could be, I have no idea. You know, this is a series that'll go from, you know, Sonic Heroes to Sonic and the Secret Rings to Sonic and the Black Knight to Sonic Lost World. Like this literally could be this could be Sonic and the Mountain of Hope, right? This could be Sonic and the Eden of Light. This could be Sonic. Let me know in the comment section below here. This is going to be your question for the day, and everybody let me know. Let me know in the comment section below what if you had to bet money on it, like your life's on the line, your family's on the line, bro. Like they got everybody held up, you know, and you got to guess that title. What is the title you are speculating? Let me know in the comment section below. But I do think, however, gameplay wise, it is going to be a direct sequel to Frontiers, right? You know, I think obviously this is going to be the continued evolution of the open zone, which people forget, you know, Sonic Shadow Generations kind of gave us a teaser of an evolved version of an open zone. Like in Shadow the Hedgehog, the inbuilt challenges of the world are a lot more polished, right? Like you have, you know, little time trials in there, right? You have some, like, you know, it is mainly time trials because there isn't a combat system the same way, but there is stuff where, you know, you have to use certain ones of Shadow moves. There's even when like all the world is like dark and messed up, when Black Doom takes over, there's even like harder versions of these challenges. And we know from just those challenges that like Sega Team is learning how to make challenges, you know, the specific challenges for the character, including like in Shadow Gens, you had like the side missions, 4 levels with really good challenges, which I hope like make a comeback in some way in the next mainline Sonic game. But regardless, I think the next Sonic game is going to be an evolution of the open zone, right? I wonder, however, if this time around we are going to be going on multiple islands, or if they are going to use, you know, more next gen ability, maybe remove it from Switch 1, have it switch to PS5 only, Xbox and PC, to have it truly be, hey, we are using next gen hardware here, have one massive island, maybe it's going to be 2 in there, or areas you load into. But, you know, listen, there's been a lot of leaks about this game, and I feel like, let me tell you something. The leaks about this game are so much less reliable than they used to be, because I remember when Sonic Frontiers back in the day leaked, right? No one really believed it, but a lot of those leaks ended up being true. There was a lot of leaks pre-Frontiers being like, there's gonna be a ghost girl, you go into these like, you know, fake versions of old levels, you turn to Supersonic at the end, there's a giant thing you fight, right? Like a lot of those got things right, but now that we sort of have a preconceived notion of what, you know, a Frontier sequel will be, a lot of the leaks kind of like are saying things, but I don't know like if they're just saying shit because now we kind of have an idea of a Frontier sequel. Like a lot of the leaks that are going around are saying stuff like there's gonna be a Sonic CD like mechanic. A lot of them are saying that it's gonna be a lot more momentum based with the movement, that the combat is mainly the same with some upgrades, you know, that there is still going to be cyberspace like or like side levels that you go to, right? So they're pretty safe leaks. And granted, I'm not gonna lie to you, I do think Sonic Frontier sequel is mainly going to be safe, at least in like the innovation department. I think really what it comes down to with the Frontier sequel, and even for me, right, is I just want more and better Frontiers, right? Like I want better designs for the quote-unquote like, you know, speed-based levels, right? I want a better open zone with cooler challenges, more momentum-based challenges, right? I want a better story. I want more cinematic. Like I just kind of want more Frontiers, but with all the promise, all the budget, all the, you know, fixes Kishimoto wanted to do, potentially multiple playable characters that we basically got hinted at in the Final Horizon. You know, I don't see them not bringing back multiple playable characters coming back after they did that with Final Horizon. Maybe they won't be at launch, or there'll be a DLC, or maybe it'll be like 1 or 2 characters. I don't see it being too many, because again, even there's some leaks saying that it is going to be, you know, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all playable, which I don't know if they're gonna do all that. But again, like if they're building off Frontiers and they have the animations and they have the characters, I don't see why they wouldn't just, you know, build upon it too, you know what I mean? So I think it would kind of work out in terms of, you know, just evolving from the engine and stuff like that to keep that stuff going. Now, of course, your story could be anything, right? Again, a lot of the leaks are pointing out that this game is going to take place on a sky island. You know, there's going to be the Master Emerald involved, which the Master Emerald thing is actually an interesting thing to speculate about, because if you look at the Sonic 35th anniversary merch that's leaked, right, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on the Master Emerald. You know, there's some leaks where it shows like, you know, it says 35 with like the green emerald, or like the green emeralds in the background. Like the Master Emerald is something I feel like you could still explore. You could still explore its power a little bit, or, you know, you obviously, that's how you get Knuckles involved in it. But regardless, I do think the speculation of a Sky Island seems pretty likely to me. I still think an explorable Sky Sanctuary with Knuckles would be fucking awesome, right? Like think about that, you know, that animation we got. Imagine we got something in there like where you got to genuinely glide around Sky Sanctuary. There's Chow chilling, you could do little side quests for them. Like that would be awesome, right? But obviously, you know, I'm getting in my head there, but maybe that's how the characters become playable, is they all have like their own little areas or things that they're doing. But regardless, right, the things I want the most from this next game, which again, I don't think they're gonna show too much of the game, which I just kind of want it to be an evolution of Frontiers. You know, just take everything, make it bigger, make it crazier, and that's what I want to see. But again, I think at least bare minimum for Game Awards, I think a teaser is most likely if it's going to be shown. But there is a chance. Now let's think about this, right? Sonic and Sega, they love launching Sonic games in the fall. That's kind of just been their thing now for a while. Sonic Racing Crossroads with a September release, Frontiers with a November release, right? They had Sonic X Shadow Generations with an October release, right? Sonic Colors Ultimate with a September release, like Sonic Superstars with an October release. They love to drop Sonic games in the fall. Now, that could be coincidence, that could be, you know, just timing, but I do think they do prefer dropping Sonic games in the fall. That's just kind of how they've been for the last 2 years, so I'm just going off that information. And there's a big game coming out next fall called Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, granted, I'm not one of those people that think like GTA 6 is going to take away from Sonic sales. I think GTA 6 is going to take away from everybody's sales, so I don't think that matters too much, especially like GTA is coming out in November. If they drop like the Sonic game in September, they'll be fun. But let's say the game's not ready. You know, they're not going to have it until the year after. There is 2 other routes they can go, right? Route 1 is, I think, an easier one, but we'll talk about it, a remaster, right? We could have another situation of a Sonic X Shadow Gens where we get a remaster of another Sonic game with added content. I think now, I'm not gonna lie to you, they've got to put themselves in a position where you either gotta, I think, remake a game, or if you're gonna do a remaster of a 3D game, you gotta add some kind of new content, right? We got Sonic X Shadow Generations, and so I feel like if they do something else now, we're gonna need some kind of new content. Now, obviously, a lot of people for the longest time, now including myself, have been speculating Sonic Unleashed, right? Sonic Unleashed seems really poised for a remaster. Let's talk about it. One, like I said in the last video where we talked about a lot of Sonic news, Bowling for Soup dropped a random, you know, modern version of Endless Possibility that they did themselves, which, you know, I actually got the video DMCA'd, so don't play music from that editor. There was that, right? Sonic Crossroads has like a shit ton of Unleashed representation, including the Werehog. You have like a decent amount of, you know, assets. You even have like the Phoenix boss in that game. And so I'm wondering if this is going to be the time where we finally get the Sonic Unleashed remaster. But I've talked about this before, and Sonic Unleashed to me is a problem in terms of, I think, fan versus critics, right? Because you forget that, like, even though a lot of us love Unleashed, the general public makes fun of it a lot. You know, like the Werehog is made fun of a lot, you know, the combat system, the music, you know, the da-da-da-da-da, like a lot of things that we've grown to love over time and enjoyed, right? I feel like is heavily criticized nowadays. So I feel like if like all like Colors and Generations are easy wins for a remaster because they are 2 games that people already just really liked, even critics wise, and so remastering it with some new content is an easy win. Whereas Unleashed, I think, is a controversial game, and so remastering it, I feel like Sega and Sonic team is gonna have to do heavy work. If anything, Sonic Unleashed recompiled, the PC port that fans worked on, is like probably the best way to go about it in terms of just regular Sonic stuff. But for the Werehog, yeah, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you make the metal requirements lower. I don't know if you add an easy mode. Do you make it so that, you know, you unlock more combos easily? Like, they're gonna definitely have to do some restructuring or some kind of work with Sonic Unleashed. And I think that's gonna upset a lot of fans, but it's probably gonna be better for the reception overall of the game. Now, I do think if they do an Unleashed remaster, there probably is going to be some kind of new content. Now, is it time for Silver? Is it time for an Amy story to maybe tie in for, you know, the next movie coming up, right? We've got a Sonic movie drop in March 2027. And so if a Sonic movie is dropping if a Sonic game is dropping in fall of 2026, you would maybe want to have something that'll like not hold over fans, but like make people, you know, get excited for an Amy, right? Or a Metal Sonic. So if anything, I think Silver might not be the spotlight of a Sonic X Silver Unleashed. I think if anything, there might be a chance that Amy and Metal get the spotlight in a Sonic Unleashed. And remember, Amy is in Sonic Unleashed, right? She hangs out with Professor Pickle. So maybe, you know, you do a little side story where it's post Unleashed. What does Amy do, right? What was Amy doing in her time with Professor Pickle? Maybe she was sent out on missions, or maybe she will be sent out on missions and working with the professor. I don't know, but regardless, Sonic Unleashed feels like a shoo-in, especially like now that it's pretty clear that we've got 2 of the Boost Formula games on modern console, 3 of them actually, if you count Forces, Colors Ultimate, Shadow Gens, Sonic X Shadow Gens, and I feel like it's weird to just leave out Unleashed. And again, they've been marketing it a lot. They talk about Unleashed a lot more. So Who knows? But I think if they are going to do just a base remaster for a 3D game next to a new content, it's gonna be Unleashed, and again, it'll be at the Game Awards. But let's say that a remaster, you know, is not what they want. They want something a little bit ambitious, but not too ambitious because the next mainline game isn't ready. I think it is time, potentially, for our next, or our first 3D Sonic game remake, right? We have not, which is crazy, in an era where everything is getting remakes, right? Resident Evil gets remakes, Crash, for fuck's sake, got remakes, you know, Spyro got a remake, FF7 got a remake, like so many projects, IPs, franchises have been getting remakes instead of just remasters. Sonic is one of the few that is just not invested in that, and I'm wondering, this is, you know, a big, hey, I'm wondering about this, right? If potentially it's time to remake a Sonic game, which one would they go with? Now, I think in interviews, and we've talked about this on videos before, they've made it extremely clear that they don't want to touch Adventure 1 and 2 right now. They've said it themselves that, hey, Adventure 1 and 2 are really special games. The amount of work that it would take for those games to be remade would take an entire game development's worth of time, and that's just not where the company's head's at, you know? They want to work on new stuff. But something that was rumored a long time ago, and, you know, could potentially be, you know, given to an external dev with some work with Sonic Team, Sonic Heroes, right? That's the big one that I think is extremely obvious and extremely likely. Now let's talk about the bullet points. One, Midori, right before, you know, everything, you know, was added about them and all that stuff, they had, you know, said that Sega is exploring the idea of a Sonic Heroes remake. Two, we have we have Unreal Engine 5, right? So Sonic Racing Crossroads was devved on Unreal Engine 5 instead of just the Hedgehog engine. And the rumor back then was, you know, when Midori was talking about stuff, was that Sega wanted to experiment more with Unreal Engine 5. And I feel like a good way to experiment with that would be to have a remake. Now, another reason you would want to maybe do Sonic Heroes is, again, it was the best-selling Sonic game until Sonic Frontiers, right? Literally, like, people forget that like Sonic Heroes sold a shit ton, and it's probably one of the most nostalgia-based games. I mean, like I said, every casual I ever talk to, whenever I meet them at an event, when I tell them I'm into Sonic, they're like, oh yeah, I played, and I literally say it at the same time as them. You played Sonic Heroes and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. I know, every single time. And so I think a Heroes remake is one. It's easy for, you know, people that grew up with it nostalgia-wise to get into it. The fans will be into it, and I think it needs it more than most, right? I've talked about this to death. I have a lot of problems with Heroes. You know, I think it's slippery. I think it can be very frustrating, but aesthetically and style-wise, it's incredible. So if you were to remake that game with, you know, the types of areas you go to, right, and you have fixed up physics in that shit, right, I think it could be one of the best Sonic games ever made. And you have that plus the teams. You've reestablished Team Dark because of the Year of Shadow last year, right? You've reestablished, you know, even Team Heroes, right? With, you know, Final Horizon DLC having the gang playable again and the movies, right? You are introducing, you know, Amy to the forefront again, right? Metal Sonic is going to be in movie 4, and he's the main villain of Sonic Heroes. There have been rumors of Sega wanting to, you know, explore and work on the Chaotix. For the longest time, there was rumors of a Knuckles and Chaotix TV show. And, you know, they got all the Chaotix back for Sonic Racing Crossroads. So I think just on a character basis alone, Sonic Heroes feels like an easy win. And remember, the good thing about Sonic Heroes is you don't need full movesets for these characters. You just kind of need the fit, because all the teams share physics across each other. It's just about different animations, you know, for the power types and speed types and all that stuff. So I think that's going to be one aspect that's going to be fairly simple to do. And again, the level layouts for Heroes is already done. I think, you know, obviously you should fix some stuff and change stuff, but for the most part, you have the layouts done. And also, think about the assets that Sonic and Sega team already have. I just think a lot of the heavy lifting is already kind of done with Heroes. And so I think remaking it with a new coat of paint, with some new physics, updated story, because I think we could all agree those CG cutscenes in that game age poorly. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think Heroes is a game I would take a full revamp of the story. Keep it cartoony, keep it focused on Neo Metal, but I do think like I can go for a revamp on the story there. There's nothing really unique about the story in, you know, in a game like Heroes, because like for the most part the game is like the cutscenes are like, oh, what are you guys doing here? I'll show you. Like you could add a lot of story moments to that game. You could add an extra phase to the final boss fight. You know, you could develop a lot more of what's going on. But my biggest question with a game like Sonic Heroes is like, what do you do for the campaigns? Because I think in Big 2025 they're not going to make you play through 4 campaigns to get the true ending, or if they do, those campaigns are shorter or they're heavily worked on, you know, in a game. Maybe the game is just so much more enjoyable that you'll want to do it. And I also wonder if they'd add a 5th team to the game, right? Like maybe you add Team Silver, Blaze, and boom, an IDW character added in there, right? Or you do a Team IDW with Tango Whisper, and you know, who would be the third, Lanolin or Jewel, whichever, somebody from one of the IDW comics would be a cool story addition in there. Then you get a bit of their lore. But regardless, I know I'm yapping a lot about this, but I think Sonic Heroes just seems prime in a sense. You know, it just seems primed up very easily for some sort of remake. If they're not gonna remake that game, I don't know what else they would do besides, unless they remade the Sonic Advance games, because like I said, they're not doing Adventure 1 and 2. They've made that pretty loud and clear. The classic games are probably off limits because they just did Sonic Origins. Or I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong, and at the Game Awards they just show a brand new 2D modern Sonic game. I have no idea. I'm praying over here. Regardless, I think speculation on the next Sonic game makes sense for us to be having, because again, we got to start getting into that 35th anniversary marketing. I mean, like I said, promo stuff has already been leaking about the 35th anniversary. We've got, you know, Game Awards already. Sonic is nominated for stuff. Also, by the way, I did want to add a small thing. I think the Game Awards is going to feature a trailer for Sonic Racing Crossroads, potentially detailing the so-and-so leaked free stages coming to the game. In the source code of the game, it says there's stuff like, you know, selectable cores January, February, March. So potentially what's going to happen is I could see a Sonic Racing Crossroads trailer in the pre-show, or maybe the main show, into them being like, that's cool for the future of Sonic, but wait, there's more, leading into the big reveal. But this could age poorly, and maybe it will, but I don't know why. I really have it in my head that this is the year at the Game Awards we're going to see the next main event, main thing for Sonic shown. Whether it's this remake, remaster, or mainline game, I'm excited to think about. I'm excited to potentially get into. But guys, let me know in the comment section below, what do you guys think? Am I completely wrong? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something you think is going to be at the Game Awards? Or do you think they're just going to skip out this time? They need a little bit more time in the oven. Let me know in the comment section below. Thank y'all for watching. You're the best. And of course, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.